Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of 7 Questions in 7 Minutes. My name's Jordan Early, and I'm joined as always by David King, the founder and CEO of Tribal Habits. How are you, Dave?
I'm excellent, Jordan. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. I've got my quarantine haircut has happened, so I'm looking a little more streamlined than some of our other videos.
I've got the quarantine beard, so you've lost some and I've gained some.
But today I want to talk about shifting workshops online. I think it's something, given the quarantine, which we've just been speaking about, a lot of people are now working from home, which means that it's really difficult for organizations to run their workshops, given that most workshops have been face-to-face in nature.
Yep.
But it doesn't remove the need for organizations to train staff and to educate staff. So we're seeing businesses and organizations start to move their workshops that used to be face-to-face into an online environment. And I thought today we could talk about some tips that you could give us that might help organizations package that up and move their training online in a logical way. How does that sound?
Absolutely. And it is definitely a good thing to talk about. A lot of the admin training sessions we've been running for new customers at Tribal Habits recently have been on some of these issues where they've got piles of workbooks and slides and kind of what are the things they need to think about, like, get into the fine detail of creating quizzes and images and things.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it. I think a good first point would be just to talk about what people's objectives are of doing this. Like, why would you do this?
Yeah, and it's good that you phrase it that way, because I think there's a couple of different reasons to do it. And if you haven't got a clear reason or clarified what your primary objective is before you begin this conversion process of going from workshop to online training, you can get into trouble. So examples could be, we just want to replace the workshop. So in this case, your training needs to be standalone online. It's a complete replacement of your workshop. And so it needs to be written in a way where it might need to do things like icebreakers and conclusions and set up next steps all by itself. It could be that it's done as an alternative to your workshop, which means it is a possible replacement. This is particularly important for, say, training providers who've been running workshops all along and now want to offer both online and workshop. And that can actually be slightly different to a complete replacement. You may be referencing things slightly differently or packaging them up slightly differently. It could be that this is a lead generator for a workshop. So it could be it's a partial replacement. You're going to take some of the workshop and put it online. And if you're a training provider, use it as a lead generator to get people to buy the workshop or go for the workshop. Or if you're in an organization, it's to give people maybe 15, 20 minutes of training. And if they're interested, then they can come to webinars or workshops for the detailed stuff. Or it might be to improve or complement your workshop. So the online training could be pre or post training around a workshop or webinar. So it could be getting people ready, providing information, surveying them, or afterwards driving implementation or reinforcement of key facts. All of those reasons will certainly impact the way you then do the conversion afterwards.
Yeah, and it's important that people know that going into the process, isn't it? Because it's going to direct the way that you go.
Exactly.
Great. So how about kind of splitting up workshop information to have it be more processable in a digital format? Obviously, we take things in really differently in online learning than we would in a face-to-face environment. So it'd be good to talk through some of that.
We do, and I think we could probably do a whole one of these 7 questions just on that. So I'm going to pull out a key thing at the moment, which is length. So once you've kind of mapped out the purpose of the workshop, the next one is then to chunk it up, because chances are your workshop is longer than one online training module should be. So I can sit in a workshop for half a day. I don't like doing it, but I can. Yeah. Because I'm moving around, I can have a variety of things going on, and you can maintain my engagement level if you're a good facilitator, I guess. But I can't do 4 hours solid of online learning. That's just not going to happen. I'm in a different environment. I can probably process about an hour before I'm going to need a break, and even that's kind of pushing it. So I think you need to take your workshops and break them up into smaller modules. It also allows your online modules to have a consistent feeling of progression, which is really important online. I want to feel like I'm getting somewhere. So if you can take a 4-hour workshop and make it, say, 5 modules, each module, say, 20 minutes to 40 minutes long, it means every 20 to 40 minutes, I am finishing a whole module, which is great for my kind of enthusiasm and motivation and kind of keeps me moving forward.
Excellent. So let's stick on the topic of length. How else does length impact online training? What other things should people look out for?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, rather than do a 4-hour workshop in one half day, if you had 5 online modules, you could drip feed those modules to people over a period of 2 weeks. From a learning point of view, that's a huge improvement because I've got much more of a chance to embed that knowledge into long-term memory than I do if I'm sitting in a workshop and trying to absorb all of it in 4 hours. So if you think about that, you also kind of think, well, where do I want to naturally put the gaps between each module where it suits a break of a couple of days for someone to go away and implement some stuff or test some stuff. And when they come back, I might be thinking it's been maybe 3 or 4 days. Maybe I do a little quick online quiz to reinforce the stuff from the previous module before we start the next module. And when you start to put things together like that, with very little extra work, you get a much better training outcome because you're improving all the transfer of learning, all the reinforcement, all the reflection, and you're kind of spacing it out. The other good thing is I can come back online really easily. I can't go back to a workshop. But coming back online to relook at a module is very handy for me, particularly if you can design your module in a way where the first time I use it, it's for learning, but the second time is for reference. That means it needs probably a very quick navigation structure internally to allow me to come back and quickly get to that thing I want. What we don't want is that old school set of slides online where I've got to hit the next button 40 times to get to that one slide with the template I wanted. That's very disengaging.
Great. So I think we're getting into some of the benefits of online learning here. I wonder if you could go through some more of them. Obviously, there's benefits of being face-to-face, and there's absolutely a place for that. But there are distinct benefits to online learning as well. Yeah,
look, and again, we can cover a lot there, but I'm going to pull one out here in particular, which is that it's very easy to edit online learning. And we'll probably talk more about that as we go here. But one of the things you can do with the editing is it's very easy to customize your modules. So if you create those 5 modules that we're talking about, and if you think I'm going to use them with different customers and organizations or different teams or different groups, and there's parts of them where I may want to customize it for each. I might want to use specific contextualized examples in each that suit the teams, roles, industries, organizations of those learners. With online, that's really easy to do if you've given a bit of thought to that before you start. So you might think, after I've taught them this bit here, or I've learnt this bit here, they want to do a case study. I want that case study to be unique for each industry or customer or team or whatever. Since it's very easy to copy an online module, go in and edit that one part, you can do that. If you've given some thought in advance to say, this is the universal content and then these are the bits I'm going to modify, then you have a master one which you can just copy and make your changes to modify that out. Most online learning platforms will allow you then to stream or use pathways to combine modules together. So you can have a master pathway of 5 modules, and you can have a pathway for team A and a pathway for team B. They're both 80% the same, 20% different, but actually it only takes 10% effort to make that because we're just cloning them and editing a few parts. And that contextualization is very beneficial for learners. The more you can do that, the more they engage.
Absolutely. And how do you see results differing from online learning to like a more traditional face-to-face workshop?
Yeah, let's pull that apart into 2 things. I think the first one's just the measure of success. And so in workshops, you have your happy sheets, which everyone completes at the end. The problem is they're completing those things pretty much at the end of the workshop, not later when they've implemented. If you have those 5 online modules, you can be doing online surveying at the end of every module and getting that feedback all the way through. You can also ask them for standardized information, and your learning portal should aggregate that for you much quicker. So you can get that very quickly. You should also think about how else you would measure success, which is normally measured through change. So that's why it's quite useful to think about, well, maybe I want to do some surveying of participants at the start and then some surveying at the end so I can show some change between those 2 data sets. Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be an assessment of something. It could be someone's comfort with something or how they feel about something before and after. And that sort of capture of change in feelings or confidence or strength or attitude is just as important for training effectiveness, whether it's internal or something you're selling externally.
Yeah, and I think that plays into the next question, which is around this issue of data capture or this benefit of data capture and the ability to measure things more broadly than just training effectiveness. There's other things that we can measure, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's awesome with online learning, where you could think, well, what other data do I want to capture about people as they're completing the training that would be useful for us as an organization or useful for my customers if I'm selling this externally? So it's not just, was the training useful? Did you improve? But maybe it's their attitudes towards things. So I'm thinking lots of surveys and polls here. What do you currently do? How much time do you spend on this? What would you do in this scenario? What have you done in this scenario? What are your top fears, top challenges, top issues, top scenarios, most common mistakes? All that sort of stuff's really great to capture in the learning process because it makes learners reflect and think while they're doing the training and gives them things to have in their mind while they're examining your content. And it's also awesome data just to feed back to the organization to demonstrate the value of training as a data capture tool, not so it's capturing from the learners, not just disseminating information towards the learners.
Yeah. Okay. So we're up to the final tip. I think there's a lot of information here. We probably need to do some more videos on this topic, but is there one other thing that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, look, we could talk pricing and positioning if you're selling. We could go back into that data stuff a lot more. We could talk about chunking it up. But I'm gonna talk about the fact that online training, I mentioned earlier, is really easy to edit. Much easier than editing workshops where you've got to fuss with facilitators' guides and then you've got to run a workshop to test it out and see how the changes work. With online, we can be constantly iterating and testing changes with the very next learner who's coming in. So often for instructional designers or just subject matter experts, I kind of need to beat the perfection out of them a bit and say, don't worry about that. Get your first draft out and have an agile approach to your online learning with constant iterations. Now, that's a lot easier if your learning tool and your platform are the same thing and making a change and implementing it is like a second's work. I get it if you're using an e-learning authoring tool and you've got to then save it and export it and put it in your LMS. That kind of scares you off that. But maybe that's your fault for choosing some bad tools. A good tool should make this agile approach and this constant iteration really easy to do.
Excellent. Well, that's about all we've got time for today. I will encourage anyone watching to jump onto tribalhabits.com and check out a guidebook that we have on this area. It covers a lot of this information, but provides a really simple step-by-step guide to moving your training online, which we've had a lot of downloads of it recently and people are finding it very useful. And with that, I'll say thanks again, Dave, and wish everyone a good day. And we'll see you all again soon.
No worries, Jordan. Thanks for having me. See you all later.
Bye, guys.